It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. It's the Unnamed Indie place for independent comic fandom. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west. It's the Unnamed Indie place for independent comic fandom. It's the Unnamed Indie Comic Show with Skip and Ash, featuring firepower and east and west.
3, 2, 1. How is it going, everybody? It is another Wednesday afternoon, evening, or morning. I don't know where you are in the world if you're tuning in, or it may not be that time if you're listening to it not live. But we're excited to be here. Joining me, as always, is my wonderful co-host and beautiful human being, Skip and Tosh. How you doing today, Skip?
I'm doing beautiful. As you just mentioned, man, I got a lot of comics today. A lot of comics. And we ain't gonna talk about them all here, but I'm excited to talk about some of them. How are you doing today, Ash?
Well, I'm doing all right. That's good that you got a lot of comics because I got exactly 0. I mean, I do have comics, but I didn't get any comics at the store today.
What happened, man? There was a few indie comics that came out that was good today. You didn't get none?
None. Well, I didn't go to the store, so it wasn't like I went and got none. But there wasn't anything in my pull box. Although there are some comics I got my eye on. I'm thinking I might want to try because some new number ones have come out. We might talk about those. But also because today I had to go to the DMV. And anyone who lives in California knows that the California DMV ain't no joke.
I live in California, and I can attest to that right there. Let's just say I finished many a trades at a single visit to the DMV.
Oh boy, I am glad. Yeah. I am so glad. Thank the Lord that is over. I have all this anxiety. I was supposed to go Tuesday, but I managed to get an appointment. And I was like, oh my God, it's like getting the golden ticket in Willy Wonka to get an appointment. Mm-hmm. I was like, I got an appointment, but it was for Wednesday. So I went this morning, and even though I showed up a half an hour before my appointment, I didn't get done until an hour after my appointment, which in California DMV terms, it's actually still really fast, an hour and a half. So I'm going to count myself very lucky, but man. And so I'm $400 lighter now. I took care of my registration while I was there. And, they were just like, oh, you got a car? Cough it up, buddy. You got to pay us to drive in this state. So I paid my registration, which is another good thing because that was needing to get done. And I was like, you know what? I'm here. And I was talking to the guys like, can I pay my registration with you? Or do I have to do something? Then have to come back? And he's like, oh, I'll take care of it. I was like, yes. Because I don't want to come back here for another 5 years. Whatever my thing is due, whenever my license. So I am now officially licensed in California. I've had my Colorado driver's license this whole time. And with the whole COVID thing going on, I was like, you just couldn't getting into the DMV. I was like, there's no way. I just kept putting it off. And it's like, oh, my birthday is Sunday. And my Colorado driver's license expires. I need to get this done. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, good idea to take care of that because you don't want the state of California giving you a nice ticket for your birthday. You don't want that present.
No. And I fear, too, I mean, you're supposed to get it done right away. You move here, like, you got like 10 days or something to swap your license over. I pushed that way back. So, yeah, I didn't want to. Fortunately, it's all, like I said, thank the Lord, that is all over. It is it makes me feel good though. I gotta tell you, all that anxiety. Whenever you do something that's anxiety inducing, when it's done, it's like the endorphins just flood in, and it's like you're just riding a high. You're like, it's over. So, yeah.
Thank goodness.
So yeah, I was like, it's a good thing that it was a bad week for me because DMV took all my money.
Right.
But you got a bunch of comics. Let's just get into the where did I put that thing? We have a little browser window. I'm gonna show up the new comics that came out this week, just the indies. And we'll just cover those because that's what the show's about, right? It's an indie comic show. There's a couple of big 2 books that I get, maybe you get, but we'll just talk about the indies and we'll just kind of go through. I should probably pop this up on your screen so you can see them as well. And then
Por favor.
Yeah, let's have Skip working blind. It'll make funny.
It's pretty fun though. Get in.
Let's go blow that up. There we go. So hopefully you can see that behind the scenes really well. And well, it looks like we got 12. Here's 12 new books that appeared on the newsstand. For those of you who, this is the League of Comic Geeks. If you're curious about this site that I use, it's a really good site to use to manage your comic book collection, to check out what new books are coming out, have reviews. There's all sorts of things that it does. You can manage your pull list, how much money you're spending, or you can just see what came out today. However you want to use it, there's so many different ways. So what this is a list of all the books filtered by popularity of users of the site. So it's not exactly indicative of how the book's sold, but it's a rough, approximation. You can figure that, like Last Ronin here is the #1 subscribed book for users of League of Comic Geeks. It's probably one of the most popular indie books that came out this week. Looking at this list, was there anything that you picked up or eyeballed or might be thinking about going back for?
Yes. One of the very first things that I picked up is Vinyl #4. Been reading that musical Murderous series, and it has been surprisingly joyful to me. So I like the style. I enjoy the humor within it. Although it is gory, it is not super detailed and doesn't go over the top, so to speak, or at least not too far over the top, like a book, say like Red Room, which I wanted to love so bad, but it was just a little too graphic, a little too detailed for me. Go figure, it comes out on Fantagraphics.
I couldn't finish Red Room #1, and it wasn't because it was bad. I want to love Ed Piskor. I liked the art. I liked the sort of the garage band rawness of it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is just too intense. Like,
yeah,
I can handle violence, but it was just beyond violence. It's like watching like Hostel or something. It was just,
exactly.
Some people like that stuff though. So I guess more power to them, maybe.
Yeah, some people do, and hey, as much as Ed gives the comic community, him and Jim Rugg on their YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe, I would like to see them be supported, and I wish that I had enough extra money in my comics budget that I could just continue to buy it and maybe give it away, but I'm just not able to do that. But vinyl, if I have a hunger for that and a desire, I guess vinyl fills that. Stillwater was another one. Now, I didn't end up picking up 10, but oddly enough, I found a second printing of #1, and it was not pictured in my photo that I put in our Discord of my haul. And by the way, for the people who are watching, people who are listening later or now, come check out Ash's Discord. We hang out in there. We talk about a whole host of different comic book related topics, some non-comic book related topics. So, and when I remember to, I like to put pictures up of the hauls. Other people share pictures of their hauls. So yeah, please check us out. But anyhow, Stillwater #2 was not one of. Stillwater #1 second printing was not one of the ones that made it in there. after reading the Stillwater short story that was in the Skybound X, one of those issues is that short little uh, fan centric series was coming out. It really really touched me, and so I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and get going on that. So that was another one that I grabbed.
Okay, really cool. I think I'm gonna check out Stillwater in the trades because, like you, that Skybound X Stillwater story, I have to say, out of all the stories, that one to me was the single best. It just really hit home, and the fact that he could do that in like 8 pages, I was like, phew, wow. Zdarsky, man, when he's on top of his game, he's one of the best in the business. For me, Last Ronin, Boom Studios so fumbled the ball on Last Ronin as far as not the quality of the book, but just how they handled the release of it, the publishing of it, so many ways that it just sort of, and then the price, it's like a $9 book. And I'm like, I just was like, you know what? All the interest I had going in this, because I'm an old school TMNT fan, and I was like, Eastman and Laird are back together, and they're doing, like, I was like, one last hurrah, and I guess I'll probably catch this in the final when they all collected version, but I'm just sort of passing it up. Once and Future seems interesting. Like, I'm a big King Arthur mythos guy. I read the first issue or two, and it didn't grab me, but everyone that's reading it seems to love it, and I really love Dan Mora's art. And I see covers like this with the sword, and I'm like, I need to go back and try this book again. And so we talked about Stillwater, and then Dune. I mean, I'm a big Dune fan, and I don't really like one of the authors that writes these books are based on novels. These Dune books, the House Atreides, and I forget what the previous one was, and it's like Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson, and I'm not a fan of Kevin J. Anderson. So I was like, I don't want to read these novels, blah, blah, blah. But I do kind of am curious how the story goes. So an adaptation sounds really cool, and I've really been loving these covers. I just tickles me. So, but again, I'm just gonna try to catch them on trades. And Norse mythology is something that I'm very interested in, but it's like seems like a cool trade thing as well. I'm a big Norse mythology fan, so and I hear Neil Gaiman is a good author.
Yeah.
People have
maybe
said that.
Maybe he'll make a name for himself one day.
Yeah,
keeps it up.
That'd be really good. Second round of books here. I think I see a couple that might have piqued your, at least 1, 2 maybe. I can see I'm thinking there's 2 books on here that have piqued your interest. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. There are 2 that have piqued my interest. Let's see if you got them right. So the number 1 book that piqued my interest, Frontiersman #1.
Oh, I was wrong. Okay.
Oh, okay. And it's interesting because we were talking about how Tony Fleeks of Stray Dogs fame was on I think it's literally called the Comic Book Show. And it was probably the first comic book podcast that I was listening to years ago when I was studying comic book podcasts, and there was not many because I was getting ready to start my first one with some friends at my job back in 2012. And so I found that one, and I'd been listening to it for years, and wasn't frequently checking it out. Like, I would just see who they had on there, but Tony Fleeks was on there live, and I go in there, and some of my buddies that I know were in there chatting too, and he was talking about Stray Dogs. I sent that link to Ash because I was like, oh, Ash, that's right, the trade came out. Maybe we'll talk about Stray Dogs now that I know that I definitely like it. And you checked it out, but you were telling me about the first person they interviewed that I missed, who was talking about Frontiersman. So I did crack it open. I saw it at the shop. I cracked it open. I took a look. I pulled it to buy it, but the first shop that I went to ended up having. So I have all of the East of West floppies officially now, but I was missing cover A for 25 and 40. And the first comic book shop that I went to, I just happened to search, and they had 25 and 40. So I ended up putting Frontiersman back. And then I went to 3 other shops and ended up buying like an additional $35 worth of comics anyway. So I guess I couldn't afforded it in the end, but I did put it back. The other book that I did grab, and I also didn't picture that one in my haul, was Mirka Andolfo's Sweet Paprika #3.
All right, I was thinking you were going to be Texas Blood, and the Sweet Paprika was my other choice, so I was half right.
Yeah, half right.
Half
Nice.
right. Frontiersman, sorry, Frontiersman. Just he's not leaving his wife Hickman for you. You're just not. I mean, you're forever gonna be a mistress. He might come see you on the weekend.
Maybe one day.
That interview. Yeah, I ended up watching that whole. That was a long show, man. It was like 3 hours long.
Yeah.
But the Frontiersman one, I thought it was just Fleeks. So I was like, what's going on? What's up this guy? What's going on? Am I watching the right video? But they were talking about it, and the themes that they were talking about really just kind of captured me about this concept of what happens when you're sort of an activist type, like you're pushing for certain ideologies, but then you become the old school, and you're the boomer now, and all these things that used to be like the hip, like what's going on today, like, oh, we gotta push for this, and whatever social issues are today. But then you become the old, and now the new generation doesn't care. And for some reason, that really intrigued me. The way I'm saying it, I think makes it sound worse than the way they said it. But I guess the idea, it's like just the disenfranchisement of superheroes and things like that. And I was like, maybe it's because I'm getting older, and I see that guy, and I go, that was like me, because I am a little bit, little pudgy like that. I got a little blonde beard. I see myself. Do you see that? Like, it works. It works if you can see yourself in the character. That's what they tell me. But no, honestly, it doesn't have anything to do with that. But I love superheroes, so I like exploring different aspects and themes of whatever it may be. And this is just one I hadn't heard of before. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. So these forgotten guys. That's pretty much. I still want to check out Texas Blood too someday, but yeah, that's everything else on there is kind of like licensed stuff, which normally doesn't float my boat. Let's get down. Anything else? It was a new Exo Manawar book. I feel like this got rebooted like 2 years ago, and they're only on issue 6.
Yeah, I read that issue #1, and it is not a book that will probably be talked about on our R&D comic show. At least not this series.
I did a video on my channel, Ash on Comics, so if anyone is curious what I had to say, it's buried down there somewhere because it came out, like I said, it feels like 2 years ago.
Right.
A lot of just, it feels like all the highbrow stuff is at the top, and as you go down, we're getting, not to make fun of anything. I like lowbrow stuff from time to time, but we're getting like the Barbarella, the Rick and Morty, Dynamite Lives. It seems like we're gonna cash in on the zombies and deceased phenomenons, and Dynamite's like, we're gonna do it too. And let's see. Oh, we got Andy in the chat says, did Ash just admit he's a neckbeard? I will have you know that I shave my neck sometimes.
So that's a sometimes, Andy.
Yeah, I'm lazy. I'll be 48 in Sunday, and you just get lazy, man. You just let that beard grow. I'm like, whom I gotta impress? No, but if I gotta look a little bit respectable, I'll get out the beard trimmer and get it all nice. But I usually let it go for like a week at a time because I'm just lazy. And when you have blonde hair like me, like you can afford. I don't get that shadow. It goes from nothing to, hey, you got hair in your face. Where did that happen? I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on the dregs. No, I kid. There's some hidden gems down here, but I'm just going to kind of scroll down. Is there anything else that you think is interesting, worth pondering about, or you've heard people talk about, or
No, not that I can see. No, this week was definitely a light week for, well, I mean, real obviously for both of us. You didn't have anything on your list. I had three things. Two of them were indie books. One of them was actually a DC book, which is surprising. But the only reason why that's even on there is because I found that artist in one of my favorite indie books that's come out in the last, well, I guess I can say in the last decade, because 2022 would have been me like officially coming back and consistently reading comic books, because I kind of came back to it in 2012. So yeah, in the last decade, I found this artist on Coffin Bound. So that's the only reason why that DC book is even on there. But I mean, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I can share some of the books that I did get, because all of them except for that one were indie books.
Yeah, feel free. There is one book on here that,
Mm.
or sorry, that's not on here, and that's because it's a Comixology original and it came out today. And that is Snow Angels, the new issue. It's volume 2, issue 4, or they call them season 2. I hate that issue. So that's one of the books that I get. It's on the Comixology originals. So if you have Comixology Unlimited, you can read them when they release for free, or you can purchase them digitally, $2.99. It's one of the best comics I'm reading. I love it. So that's not on the list here because they don't have a print edition. However, someone in my Discord, I think it was in Discord, informed me that they are doing a print collection in February. So I am going to probably buy that and push it on people because I love that book. So go ahead with what you're talking about.
Absolutely. Well, let's see. We're gonna get some. We're gonna get some cam skip. It's gonna happen.
Skip cam.
Skip cam. It's been a little while. I feel well. Either I don't know if I feel or if I'm sparing everybody that would be listening via voice. But anywho, skip cam. Good to see you all. Number one, even though I've already read it, it was an image first and it's only $1. So I figured I would grab it just to have it and then pass along to someone else, because I like to get number ones, read them, and then pass them along. I also never read, even though I really enjoy Rick Remender, who also wrote that book. And by the way, the art is incredible in this book. Tuccini, I forget Tuccini's first name, but incredible art. Rick Remender, and artist last name Moore, because I haven't opened it up. Fear Agent. Found that for $1, of course. Gotta love those image first. Think Tank by Matt Hawkins and Rashawn Ekadal, or Ekadal. I had never heard of this before. And, they said not to judge a book by its cover, but that's not true when it comes to comics. That's part of what sells comics is the book. But I'll ultimately, or part of what sells it, but ultimately I'll judge it based off of what's on the inside of it. Another series. Now, this series I've already read, and it ended up being same thing. One of my favorite series that I've read, at least in the last 2 years, Rain Like Hammers, written and illustrated by Brandon Graham. I already had issue number 1, but I had the second printing because I had a choice, and I liked the second printing better because it had a really hot and colorful young lady on there.
Oh.
I also found another book by Brandon Graham called Multiple Warheads, and I don't know what it's about, but I really like his art style, and his writing is like very sentimental and off kilter, so I dig it. This is one that I was supposed to read last night, but I did get a few days ago from Bad Idea Comics. Hank Howard, Pizza Detective, The Caligula's Safe. I really enjoyed the short story that was in the back of Tanker's number 3. So Robert Venditti and David Lapham. I'm gonna give the book a try. I do know that there's something interesting about it. I'm gonna tell y'all a secret. Don't tell anybody else. But it says that's a Hank Howard comic, but it's not. There's only a few pages of the Hank Howard comic. There's a secret comic with more pages inside that looks really, really cool. Of course, everybody that's been following knows I've been loving Leila Starr, and damn this comic shop, when I went looking for the foil covers for issue number 4, they had a Virgin variant of I think that was from issue number 4, and then they had a second printing of issue number 2, and I love the book so dang much. Definitely book of the year for me so far, and I don't know what's going to come along and take that away. So I got a second printing of issue number 2, and this was a variant from issue number 5. And I want to give this comic shop some props. It's A1 Comics out here in Sacramento. This variant I've seen going in most shops for like $15 at least. They didn't mark it up. They left it out there. And when I got to the register, I think he sensed it, but he just rang it up for me at the price that it was there. He didn't mark it up, and he didn't price it marked up. He gave it to me for $3.99. So I appreciate them. Yeah, not pulling.
Shout out
not
to
pulling
all
the fast one.
all the comic book stores that do that. I gotta tell you, few things will have you lose my business quicker than you modifying the price at the register. It's like, that's your job, man. You got to mark that book up, in the store. And if you don't, keep your price.
Straight up. All right. And only a few more to go. I've been reading Murder Falcon. I'm halfway done with it now, but I haven't finished it yet. But I found a second printing of issue number 1. And I said, heck yeah, because Daniel Warren Johnson is a cool dude. Love his art. His stories are super fun. And he has a really cool stream, too, that's really chill and laid back on YouTube. So check him out sometime if you haven't. I already have all of these, but I was looking for the variant for King of Nowhere, the Martin Morazzo variant for King of Nowhere. W. Maxwell Prince and Martin Morazzo are the team, and Chris O'Halloran and good old Neon are the team that comprise the team that do the Ice Cream Man comic book, which is my favorite comic out right now. And so this is the Tyler Jenkins one, but there was a pack. It was cheaper if I got another number 1 of the regular cover and then the Martin Morazzo variant cover, King of Nowhere. So that'll give y'all those good old Ice Cream Man vibes. 2 books that I already had, but I let my girlfriend borrow my book 2, and I haven't gotten it back yet, so I just got another one because I'd look down there in like my short box, and I was like, there's a gap in my number 2, and I just don't like that the book is not there. So I just bought another one. It just feels weird, right? Like It just feels like something's missing.
I totally.
And then I had like a variant cover for number 3, so I found the cover A and I grabbed that. And this might be the jewel. I'm gonna find it the jewel of the day, the find of the day. Again, thank you A1 Comics. I found Captain EO, published from Eclipse Comics. Michael Jackson, Captain EO. The only downside is that it doesn't have the 3D glasses, which is fine. I can find my own. I know. But yeah, Captain EO, I just remember being young and going to Disneyland and going into that theater and watching Captain EO and, him singing Another Part of Me and like getting all these people that were in some sort of robotic bondage, like to join his team through the power of dancing, of Michael Jackson singing and dancing. So seeing this, and I was almost Captain EO last Halloween, but I went to go order the shirt and they didn't have it in my size. So y'all might see me do Captain EO for Halloween.
I love Captain EO.
Captain EO. Heck yeah, man. So good.
Anyway, that's a thing from a generation. For today. Like, it's one of those things that you were either alive and got to experience it, or you like never will. It's unfortunate.
The only other time that they played it was like right after he passed away at Disney World and Disneyland. They started playing it again, but I think it's already gone again. So
yeah,
it's unfortunate. But okay, now remind me though, was it oh gosh, how am I forgetting his name? He was the actor or the director that did Back to the Future.
Oh, Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah, Zemeckis. Actually, and it's funny because it was Zemeckis and George Lucas, because Industrial Light and Magic, took care of the special effects for Captain EO, and George Lucas came on set. So you had Robert Zemeckis and George Lucas with Angelica Houston as the villain and Michael Jackson. Like, my gosh, how much better does it get?
You know what's crazy is I'm a movie fan, which is why I was able to just cite Robert Zemeckis off the top of my head. I know who he is. Like, I love Robert Zemeckis. I did not know Robert Zemeckis was involved in Captain EO.
Mm-hmm. He directed it.
He's one of my favorite directors, and of course George Lucas. Like that. I mean, I was like, how did I not know these things? Oh my god, it's weird. It's like you think like, oh, I'm a fan of that. Really? Did you know? He's like, no, I didn't. So wow, thanks.
Yeah. Oh no, excuse me. Hold on, wait. I stand corrected. I stand corrected, and I'm glad. I'm glad I double checked. George Lucas and Francis Ford Coppola.
Okay. I don't feel like such a dunce now, though.
No. You get to take off the dunce cap, and yeah, freaking Francis Ford Coppola. Like, man, that's crazy.
Seriously.
Yeah, he came up with the name Captain EO from the Greek of Eos, the Greek goddess of dawn, and that was a big part because I'm going to spoil it because it's been out for I don't know how many years. The villain ends up turning from the dark to the light. So
yeah,
Captain EO was able to, through the power of dance, turn it around.
From the power of dance.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
and now through the power of comics, you guys can experience Captain EO. You can find it out there. So just tying it right back to the indie comic show. Captain EO is an indie comic. And we're talking about it on the indie.
Yeah, you can't watch Captain EO anymore, but you can experience the comic book. How weird.
Thank you, Eclipse.
Oh, did we lose you?
Oh, I'm still here. I just turned my camera off.
I had a weird technical thing popped here. How do I? There we go. All right. Well, I guess it's time to move on to the next part of our program, where we get a little bit down and exclusive with some specific books. Now, recently, I did a little video on my channel because I did a little unboxing because my boy Skip here was super kind and sent me some books. And so if you've seen the video, then you know what they are. But yeah, let me just real quick kind of talk about these books because I did get a chance to read them. And as I said in my video before, I used to joke around that A Bad Idea comics were just a myth. It was like the Easter Bunny or something. Like it's just something you told kids to be like. But no, they're real. I can vouch for them. I have held them in my hands, and I did not know that these books were so high quality in the publishing, like the materials of these books. Holy cow. If you guys have never seen held a Bad Idea comic, or you've been on the fence about, oh, I'm gonna get a comic, oh, it's kind of expensive book or whatever, because they are a little pricey, all that money goes into the book. Let me assure you, the only thing you have to worry about is the story going to be something that you care about? But these writers, they're top name writers. The artists, they're better than top name artists. These are artists that the big two couldn't afford. This is why you don't see them. And the publishing, this first book, Monster Kill Squad, I mean, all of them have cardstock covers, but then it's also it's not embossing. It's that technique where you put gloss portions over flats. So on this particular, if you're able to see on the screen, you've got the characters. The characters all come off in a gloss finish, and the background is flat, and it helps create sort of this. It adds a little depth. It's not 3D. I'm not going to try to fool you on that, but if you've seen them in person, they just look nice, and you hold it in your hand, and then the interior pages, Skip, this has blew me away. I've opened the book and went to the first page.
Yeah.
The pages, the interior pages are like the quality of paper that Marvel uses for their covers.
Yeah, or even a little better.
Maybe even better, yes. each page. I was like, good Lord.
Mhm.
I had to say these books are almost too nice. Like,
Right.
they don't feel like comics. I'm like, did you guys just go to the publisher and just be like, give us the absolute highest grain stock of paper, everything you possibly can, money's no option? They don't feel like comics. Like, they are obviously comics, but I was gonna say, like, when I was reading the last issue today, and I was putting in the bag, I was like, I can't even call these floppies. I'm gonna call them stiffies, because the covers are like the thick cardstock. They don't bend hardly. I was really impressed. I was like, okay. I was almost too impressed, because I was like, I'm kind of a guy who misses newsprint a little bit. So,
Mhm.
but so I got these books. There's Monster Kill Squad. There is Iniak, and then what was the other one? Tankers. Now, Skip, I'm gonna play a little game with you here. So I read all
Okay.
three.
All right.
Now I want the object here is you have to predict in what order did I like them from least best to best.
Okay. 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 All right. Okay, tell me when to go.
Whenever you're ready, floor is yours.
Okay. I'm going to say Iniak number 1, Monster Kill Squad number 2, and Tankers number 3.
So when you're saying that Iniak was the best.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I think you like Iniak the most. I felt like you liked Monster Kill Squad the second best, and I felt like you liked Tankers the third best.
All right. You would be very correct.
Yeah.
There's a hole in one.
Nice.
I gotta say, however, it was pretty close between Monster Kill Squad and Tankers.
Okay, I figured it would be.
I could see either book taking over the other as I
Mhm.
read more of the issues.
Okay.
But I think from just the single issue, Monster Kill Squad had just a little bit more going for it, and it had the gorgeous what's his name? Thomas Giorello art.
Thomas Giorello, yeah.
Oh
super
my
good.
God. I gotta
So
tell you,
good.
this guy's art is so good that this cover does not do it justice. Normally the cover art should be better than like the book, you know?
Yeah.
But he's got interiors that are better than this cover, I think. He's that good of an artist. And for those of you who are listening in and you're not be able to see what we're showing, Thomas Giorello, by the way, is the artist who did the Matt Kent Exo Manawar series. Same artist. So I was like really pleasantly surprised. I love that artist. that series is eye-poppingly gorgeous. So I was happy to see that.
Oh, Ash, I'm sorry. Correction. And I was pretty certain of this, but I double checked. So Louis LaRosa is actually the cover artist for Monster Kill Squad, and then Tomas did the interiors. Louis LaRosa does almost all of the covers for the Bad Idea books. Almost all. He does like 80% of them.
This covers. Are you?
Yeah, because it even has his signature down there at the bottom.
Wait a second.
Luis LaRosa. And if you, it's in the back as well.
No, it's got both. It's got LaRosa and Giorello's signature on the cover.
Oh, okay. So they did it together.
Yeah, and
Okay.
So I don't know. I guess it is in League of Comics Geeks, which has been wrong before, does have it listed as Giorello as the cover artist. But either way,
Yeah.
Someone, you guys listening in, you'll know and you can correct us. But this was a gorgeous book.
So good.
And the concept was fantastic. But let's start with the least favorite. So Tankers, I absolutely love Tankers, and I could tell you that if I read more of this, which I hope if I can find them and read them, because it's not like you can wait for trade on any of these books. This is a story that I think could get really wild. The first issue is just bam, slam. Here's a ton of information just to like kickstart the story. So that does take away from the overall experience because it's kind of rushing the reader to like, here's all this world building, here's all this stuff, boom, boom, boom. We don't want to waste time. We're going to get this done in like 10 pages.
Right.
And that's great that you're not having to read, 6 issues of stretched out storytelling, but it also for a singular issue, but by the end of it, when you get to the end and it's kind of like leaves off at this cliffhanger, you're immediately, at least I was like, oh no, I need to read more. Like now I'm like hooked. It just sinks a big old lure like right into your cheek, and it's just like, so. And Venditti, bless his heart, he just knows how to tell. This was just so fun. It reminded me of like a little bit of Aliens, the James Cameron Aliens, with the whole with that way the Marines were, that whole banter between them. I love decor. So it had a bit of that. It had some silliness. I mean, a lot of this stuff is tongue in cheek. The whole, like, of course, everything was so cliche of like the rich oil billionaires, and they decide the premise of the book is that these rich oil billionaires, they need more oil because they want to make more money, because you can never have too much money, and they realize, hey, oil is made by dinosaurs, and we don't know how much oil is left in the world, but we know that the dinosaurs were made extinct by this comet. Why don't we go back in time and make this particle beam device that'll shoot a comet and make it so that the comet it'll go off course and it won't come back for like 150 million years. And so that'll be 150 million years of dinosaurs that are still populating the earth and making oil, which will theoretically make these oil tycoons even richer. Now, if you just heard that synopsis and you stop and think about it for a second, you might go, wait, there's a horrible flaw in that theory. And you would be right. The book, Venditti is not ignorant to that. And he, like I said, you got to take this tongue in cheek because no one would ever really be this stupid, but it has to work for the comic book. And the horrible flaw is that if you don't kill off the dinosaurs, guess what? And when you come back to the present time, they're going to be there. Like everyone should just, so wait a second, you're not going to kill the dinosaurs? You're going to save them all? Yeah, that's right. And so that the comet will come back in 150 million years. Yeah. Oh, okay. What could possibly go wrong? I don't know. We'll go back and we'll do it. And then we come back in time and ta-da, dinosaurs are still here. Oh, and by the way, it's like 150 million years of evolution on those dinosaurs. So they're not even like the same. They're like even worse. It's like Jurassic World. And Now, fortunately, they've got their tanker mechs, but that's about all they have, right? So, and now the fun can begin. It's like, what are we going to do? We got to survive. And it's just outlandish. But you can tell, like, Venditti just, like, right from the get-go, we're just having fun. And he puts you in that mode, and you just sit back and crack a beer or your favorite beverage and just sit back and enjoy the ride with a smirk on your face, and it's good fun. And then Monster Kill Squad. Go ahead.
I just want to, only thing I want to add to that is it does get better each issue, too.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Damn you, tease. Monster Kill Squad is kind of interesting. Not as well written as either the other two books. I think Venditti and Matt Kent are better writers than Christos Gage. But an interesting enough premise. I did like this premise. Basically, a couple years ago, well, actually, decades ago, apparently. Monsters are around. We got monsters. And only a couple years ago did people really start becoming aware of them. Think like X-Files-ish type thing, but maybe a little deadlier. And so the world has started to be aware of them. The monsters are a little bit more public. The murders and killings of monsters on humans is a little bit more prevalent. And we open up the book, and it's this crew of people who, like, there's a killer clown at the school, and he's just murdered people, and they send in some elite police guys, and they just get all murdered. And so finally these other people show up, and it's just like, they're like, move aside, we're going to take care of business. Like, who are you? And they're just, and they, we're the badasses that make the monsters piss themselves in the night. And they're the Monster Kill Squad, and they are a bunch of badasses. and they fight monsters. And the interesting thing about it is, because at first I was like, well, this seems a little bit, as I was reading it, I was like, these guys are just like too good. I don't understand, but there's more to it. It's not, this first book is kind of like showing off their skill, because they're basically beating up some scrubs. And so that's why it's kind of easy for them. But then by you get to the end of the story, it kind of hints there's a much bigger thing going on. And that's what kind of really grabbed me. So between the art and the premise, I love the world building. The weakest link on this book for me was the overall just narrative storytelling. But Gage is a competent enough writer. He did deliver. And like I said, I was just into the concept and where it was going. And I love some of the premise of like the world building. I love the Medusa trapped in the basement that the one captain of the squad has to, she's just like, I'm going down alone. That way, if things go wrong, we only have like one casualty, because it's like, look, even though we're dealing with monsters and we're badasses, they're monsters and they're deadly. I did find it interesting. It reminded me a little bit of Stephen King's It, specifically the miniseries TV adaptation of It, because it's all about like these psycho clowns, but the real one is like the spider monster. It's like, oh yeah, and it's like, wow, that's just like It. But imagine instead of It terrorizing a bunch of little kids, they were terrorizing like the assault team in Predator. I guess is the best way to put it. It's a really strange mashup. Tons of fun though. It's like, and then finally, this is the book I was not prepared for. Iniak #1, or just Iniak. This was the one I was least interested in, Skip, because just by this cover, and the cover's neat and all. I was like, oh, this looks kind of weird, horror, kind of, I don't know, some sort of Cthulhu, weird H.P. Lovecraft kind of style thing. It's just trippy, but it's not at all what it is. It's not at all. Iniak is a real thing, by the way. It's a computer. It's a supercomputer. And if you Google Iniak and you look, you're not even going to get this. You might get this comic, but you're mostly going to get the real computer Iniak. And I love that about what Matt Kent did here. I love when writers take a little bit of truth and reality and then build fiction around it. And the idea basically is that we created the first artificial intelligence back in the 1940s. When we invented the computer, we invented artificial intelligence. And the world doesn't know it. And now it's out of control. And so humanity, mostly high-ranking officials in the government, are like, we need to shut this shit down. But the computer sees all, it knows all, and mostly the populace is ignorant to its existence, and it's got this really like super espionage kind of spy thriller type thing, and the premise of like the Secretary of the State meets up with these like two badass super spy assassin, whatever you want to call them, and they're like the best of the best, and you get to see them in the story just doing crazy unreal stuff. And he like meets them in secret and is like, you can't be paranoid enough for this mission. It's this, and it kind of explains to him. He meets them naked in the desert. They're naked and he's naked in the middle of like the Sahara Desert. That's how paranoid he is. And he's like, basically says that he's like, if this doesn't clue you in of how paranoid you need to be. And he kind of explains the story, and the way it all opens up, you're just like, oh my God, where are you going with this, Matt Kent? And by the time it was over, there's so many like, this is a complicated web that he's weaving. There's so many different things like going on here. And then I was reading backstories. I think it is in Tankers. No, not Tankers. Monster Kill Squad, I think, had a backstory relating to Iniak. And I was like, oh, you little geniuses over there, bad idea tying stuff in with your... This is a cool book. Do not judge it by the cover. The art is absolutely as good as you see. Doug Braithwaite is an amazing artist. But it is not this, at least not this issue. I've only read the first issue so far. it's not a trippy psycho horror weird thing. It's like super espionage, super badasses trying to stop a supercomputer that can see all and knows all. And it just, yeah, I have no idea where this is going to go, but it's so interesting and how it's set up. So yeah, those were the 3 bad idea books. I got to experience them through the generosity of Skip. And now I'm hooked. These books are damn it, Dinesh Shamdasani, wherever you are, you're not listening in, but I've been so frustrated with these guys because I knew I liked this. I loved what he did over at Valiant.
Yeah.
And this is just quality. I say it all the time, quality, or I say good is good. Even if a book looks like, it's not my cup of tea, if it's well done enough, it will grab you, you know, and it will sell you and be like, I know you don't like this genre normally, but now you like this one. This is the exception to the rule, you know, because I'm that good. And these books are like that. And you just can't help it. You're holding this book in your hand. It's the most high quality floppy you've ever held, right? And the art is amazing. The writing is amazing. Like, they did not sacrifice anything. No corners were cut on these books. And chances are you probably went through no small amount of effort to get the books. So by the time you close it, you're just like, man, yeah, I got something special. And that's what these books feel like.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you know, that you got to experience them. I'm glad that you got to feel, you know, that way about them. They were part of your birthday present.
No, now you're. Whew. In the chat, I just have this. I had to say this in the chat. This Indie Comics Jones made me laugh. His comment is, he's an Iniak on the floor, and he's computing like he's never computed before.
Comment of the night.
Seriously, comment of the night. That was rad.
I wrote back to him live in the chat, and I said, now I need to see you do the dance sequence. And he just wrote back and he said, oh, you know I'm busting a move, Skip.
So
that's right, Indie Comic Jones.
Thank you guys for everyone that's been joining in. I've seen some people kind of straggling in as YouTube finally decides to send out stuff 20 minutes after the show starts. But hey, thank you guys, everyone that's here watching live. Appreciate it. If you're listening to it in the future, appreciate you too. Skip, now that I've gotten through all the bad idea comics, I think you had some comics you wanted to give a shout out this week. Any particular order?
Let's start off with Limbo, if you would, please, sir. Limbo, a book by Dan Waters and Casper Wingard. I'm sure there's an extra nyr or something like that I didn't pronounce. I can tell because I used to work at IKEA and I would always mess up those names as well. This is a book that came out back in 2015. Yeah, 2015, 2016. Dan Waters has quickly become one of my favorite writers in comics. Y'all heard me earlier, if you were here from the beginning of the show, talking about Danny, the artist Danny, and how I discovered her through the book Coffin Bound. Well, she was the artist of that book. My buddy Brad Simpson was the colorist of that book, and the writer of that book was Dan Waters. I had started to read a book by them that is still coming out now called Homesick Pilots. And it's a really fun book with a lot of spirit, although it is a little off kilter. And this book has a similar feel to it. We got a gentleman who wakes up and he does not know who he is. Or actually, when we first meet him, he's functioning kind of like normal. But as the night goes on, and it seems like he's kind of living down in like a New Orleans type of area, like a bayou, swampy type of area. But we find out that he doesn't remember who he is. He just kind of woke up in that city, and it's kind of got rescued by someone, or at least someone like cared for him, and they formed like a friendly relationship. And he gets a call, and the person who's talking is kind of mumbled, and they're just kind of telling him like, hey, I can tell you more about yourself. I know who you are. I can tell you about, your identity. And then we kind of go from there. But we find out that he's a private investigator. And after he goes home and, we get introduced to his buddy, who I forget what her name is. And she is like a full on like supernatural being. She like is communing with like Papa Legba. If you know anything about like, that kind of whole like history, like occult history from, well, Legba comes from a few different things, but I would say more so like kind of Creole, kind of Haitian, basically voodoo background. But we find out that she is tied into that, and he gets hired by this lady who is suspicious that her boss, who is like the big boss man, kind of big bad guy of the city, that he might be kind of following her, and maybe she might, end up, she may know too much about the business and he may bump her off. And from there, like we go into this whole world. He goes and he films some of the boss's activity, only to like eventually get home and put the tape back in and get pulled into a television. And then like the whole world shifts from there. It's very fantastic.
Skip, you there?
Hola.
Hey everyone. Don't know what happened. Had some sort of internet hiccup apparently, but it looks like the audio's back. I'm checking things on my end, so we're good. So Skip, you cut off right at the beginning, so you probably didn't realize. So
Oh, okay, no problem.
Yeah,
Well, I'll
start
make
back
it.
where
I'll
you
make
were.
it quick. But yeah, Limbo by Dan Waters and Casper Wynyard, and they're the same team that do Homesick Pilots, which is currently coming out. Dan Waters was also the writer on my favorite book that came out in the last few years, Coffin Bound, and Danny, who just did the art for Miracle Molly for DC today. She was the artist. My buddy Brad Simpson did the colors. But anyway, I really, really, really have been enjoying this book. I'm on the sixth and last issue, and we get introduced to a guy who he's in a bar. He's hanging out. Seems like kind of like the average Joe, but he doesn't know who he is. He gets a phone call at the bar, uh, talking a little like the voice is faint, but they're just saying like, "Oh, hey, I can tell you more about yourself. I know who you are." And then some idiots behind him like get into a bar fight, and he gets pulled into it as well. But anyhow, we meet his friend who he's living with at home. She's the one that found him and cared for him. She's supernatural. She like communes with like Papa Legba and like other kind of voodoo spirits, and not just voodoo, but I think some other things as well. But he's the grounded character, and everybody else within the story is kind of supernatural for the most part. So it's fun because if you know anything about like mysticism and like the occult and stuff like that, there's like tons of references in there mixed with um all this cool like old tech like VHSs, VCRs, cassette tapes, vinyl, and it's cool. It mixes all of those things together in the midst of the story. So he's very grounded, and he has like very, he kind of has the thought process of us. He's like us going through the story, and then everybody else is kind of, like supernatural and kind of moving the plot along. But it's written extremely well. It's illustrated very, very, very well. I feel like Capster Wynyard's lines are a little cleaner in this book. I really like his colors, even though he's like he doesn't show a wide range of colors, but he has found what works for him, and he uses it in this book, and it is very pretty. So that's Limbo. If you can find it out there, if you want just like a fun book that has really good writing and just kind of captures the spirit of like a time, and it'll give you a little bit of nostalgia, I would really say check out this book. I did not expect to like it. I wanted to like it, but I did not expect to enjoy it as much as I have been enjoying it.
All right. So just to also be clear, folks, this book is a back issue. So typically these books we talk about are common, like the currently kind of on shelves. So you can get this in the back issue bins, or you can you get it out on trade. Looks like it's all collected. What is a 6-issue total series? 160 pages for $14.99 cover price, which means your store may even sell it for less if you get discounts and stuff. So that's what happened to me. They had it there collected for $10. So I was like, oh, yep, I'm grabbing it. And if you can't find it and you still want something that's very similar in spirit, and it's currently coming out, check out Homesick Pilots by the same creative team, coming out through Image. It's a really fun book too. But if you can find this one, start with this one and then move over to that one. All right. Well, I'm going to move us on to a book that I know you're reading. You didn't say to feature this one, but I know you're reading it. And this one surprised the heck out of me.
Oh, yeah. Did it? Tell me.
It's Fight Girls. And I looked at it and I saw the Frank Cho and I was like, oh, this is just an excuse to draw girls. This is a book for RDV, and he likes it too, and it does have plenty of girls being drawn, and on the surface it seems to have a very kind of basic like a Hunger Games type of thing. It's like, oh, it's a competition, all these girls have to go through these crazy feats and they're pretty much deadly. Everyone's getting killed, and the idea is that the I guess the queen is dead or something. It's like a future space empire civilization type of thingy, and the queen of the empire or whatever, someone's dead, and they got to find a new one. So how do you do it? You select one through a competition of dangerous games. That's of course the way you do it. And so there's 10 girls that are selected for various reasons, and they're going through these crazy survival courses and different things, and getting killed off one by one in sometimes gruesome ways. But there's more to it. By the time you get into this, we get to the end of the first issue, it hints at some subterfuge and some little political machinations going on in the background, and maybe all the contestants aren't who you think they are. It's not brainy. It's not excessively complicated, but it is deeper than it appears. Like at the first glance, you're like, oh, that's going to be so superficial. It's not even going to be funny, but it's not. There is substance to this book. But the thing that really gets me about this book is just how fun it is. Much like I like the Bad Idea books, they're just fun, entertaining without being stupid, right? Because you'll lose me. Like people go, there's lots of books. You could say, oh, Marvel and DC or yeah, but they lose me because they're being dumb. This is never dumb. It may never rise to like highbrow intellectual, heady type of stuff. That's fine. It's just, it never loses me by insulting my intelligence. It lays it on. It knows what it is, and we're like, look, just jump into the story. It's gonna have some action. We're gonna have some, titillating kind of. It's not even really titillating. I mean, there's the female figure, but like you can see here, like these women are drawn in one-piece bathing suits. It's not even like Frank is trying to overtly sexualize them, which I kind of respect. And it's, like I said, it's just fun. I just keep turning the page, and I'm just like, I could just keep reading this. If this was a trade, I just would not stop until I was finished, because it's just such a joy, and it's a page turner.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't know what to expect, but I saw like I had been looking at those Frank Cho covers again, and I just enjoyed how flippant they were, and I enjoyed the AWA Upshot book from Brian Edward Hill, Chariot, and I was like, hey, give me an excuse, Axel Alonso, to get another AWA Upshot book, and I totally will. And obviously we enjoyed Erratic by Carrie Andrews and Brian Reber. And you know what? Quick second, I don't know if he's in here or not, but shout out to Second Street Marvel, who he and I were talking about Resistance, and like we were just talking about it, and this dude literally sent me Resistance. Like he literally mailed it to me, like all the floppies. So shout out to Second Street Marvel
Wow.
for being a real one and
Yeah.
just hooking your boy up, and just he shot skip the whole Resistance thing. So I'll be going through that here in the next few days.
All right, let's move along because we do got a big feature to cover. Your book you wanted to shout out, Passive Aggressive, another bad idea book.
Yeah, Passive Aggressive. Just when you thought we were done with the bad idea books, we are not. Passive Aggressive was really interesting because like it wasn't announced. Like obviously I talked about how the Hank Howard Pizza Detective book is a secret comic. That's not really the comic that has the most pages in that book. It's really another secret comic. This book was also like, also that Hank Howard book was $1 and it was only sold for 1 day. So bad idea doing bad idea things. But this Hero Trade Passive Aggressive book, it was another like kind of gotcha, because when it came, we didn't know, and then when the book came out, it has the same cover, but when you open it up, there's two different like versions of the book. There's a passive where you get a story about the main person, the protagonist, goes through the book and is a little more passive, and then you get there's another one out there where you get the protagonist and they're more of an aggressive protagonist throughout the story. I happen to get the passive version of Passive Aggressive, and it was really interesting. It's like you got this guy, he's kind of like into tech, let's call him a hacker. He goes to this nondescript building where he has to like get through all the security, and he meets his friend in there. They sit next to each other. She's talking to him, and we find out that they're like hackers, and they're constantly like trying to hack into something, but they are like working 12 hours a day. They're getting worked. He lives alone and he has a cat, and you can kind of tell that he himself is content with his life, but his buddy who he works with, she's not. And more every day, she's kind of being like a little more defiant, talking about how it's unfair, how much they get worked, and they get paid pretty good, but they could be getting paid more. And he starts to develop this plan of how they can get out of there. And his plan goes completely like wrong, like off the rails. And he ends up, like there were some parts where if he was a little more assertive, he could have staved off some things, but he was being a little passive as she was, as he introduces the plan to her, and she was like, she wanted to do it, but she was a little afraid. And I think since she sensed a little how passive he was, like he was sure of his plan, but he wasn't also addressing some of the concerns she had. And sure enough, the plan does not go completely right. And then that character that's on the front gets introduced into the story when you least expect it. And I'm not going to say what happens, because if you can get your hands on this book and read it, it's really interesting. But the way that the story goes and how it loops back around fully circle was awesome. It was such a fun read, such a good time. Totally didn't know what to expect. Matt Kent does it again. He and David Lapham had done a series of these Hero Trade like short stories in the back of a number of Bad Idea comics. I'm glad that they got like a full issue to do a full one, because I love what was going on in this like Hero Trade world that they built, because there was different kinds of stories throughout and they linked in different ways, but this particular one was awesome. So now naturally I'm trying to track down Aggressive, because I guess Passive was like the more rare one. Aggressive, there's more copies of it, but so I'm trying to track down Aggressive so I can find out that version of the story.
Nice. And last, and the reason I saved this one for last, Skip, is because this was on your list, but it was a book that I also read. And so I was like,
Nice.
okay, I can talk about this one as well. And you had on your list to shout out Primordial #1 by Jeff Lemire and also artist Andrea Sorrentino, the same team that did Gideon Falls. Take it away.
This book I was initially pretty interested in because I liked the team of Gideon Falls and Andrea Sorrentino and Jeff Lemire. And then as we got closer and closer, I'm not a big animal person, so I kind of fell back and I was like, I'm probably not going to get it. But shout out to RDV who read it and put in the chat how interesting he thought it was. And it's not a book that I thought RDV would be interested in, although like I totally give RDV credit. Like I mean, he will read a lot of different types of books. But I didn't, it's not that I didn't think he wouldn't read it. I just didn't think he would be interested in it if he read it, but he read it, he liked it. So I was like, if RDV is interested in it, I deserve to give it a shot. I'll give it a shot. And I was pleasantly surprised. I'll say the story, as interesting as it is not what hooked me as much as the pacing of the story, which Jeff Lemire is really good at pacing.
He is so
and
good.
Also, he's so good at pacing. I mean,
Wow.
pace master.
Really?
But definitely like not just the pace, but like kind of how they did it, how the visuals of it and how they're a little kind of interesting and like I keep saying off kilter, but it is really kind of fragmented how they tell the story, and visually you get visual fragments within the story as well. So Jeff Lemire and Andre Sorrentino, really the way that they like formed a symbiotic storytelling within this book was awesome. And if you throw Dave Stewart's colors in there, Dave Stewart is just the color guru. So it's a book that is visually appealing. And then the story itself is good. I will say the only criticism I have about it, and I don't think this is going to bother too many people. I think this is just a personal thing, but like photorealistic or in like 3D models, they're like for me they stand out. So when you're taking pictures of people and it feels like you're kind of just taking those pictures and then like kind of doing some art on it over the top. Sometimes it throws me for a little bit of a loop, but I'll be honest with you, like Dave Stewart covers it up so much that like the second that I would kind of realize it, Dave Stewart would like distract me and I'd be like, oh, but look at the pretty colors. That's my only criticism of the book. Other than that, whoa, what a crazy story. But what did you think about it, Ash?
I really enjoyed the story, and I was watching it. I found myself RDV, if you're listening, like I got this pretty much exactly as he described it. Like in the beginning, I was like, it was interesting, but by the time it got to the end, he was hooked. And I've talked about this a lot. Like I'm a fan of Jeff Lemire. When he is on fire, like when he's on, he is on. One of my favorite books is the recently wrapped up Ascender series, which was the sequel to Descender. Both are good, but I love Descender even more. Yeah, it's more. And I love the current book I'm hot on is that Snow Angels, which is just fantastic. And again, you talk about this master of pacing. That book is like a clinic on how to pace a comic. And so I was expecting to like this, and I did. But I have to admit that I'm not Andrea Sorrentino is one of those guys that it seems like if you're a fan of his, like if you like what he does, you probably really like what he does. He's got his fans out there, and I'm not going to say he's a bad artist. He's not. He's just the style of his art is not my thing. He's very much he feels a lot more like a commercial artist. All right, check 1, check 2. Skip, give me a mic check.
Mic checks. Check 1, check 2, check 10.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you if you're still here with us. Appreciate your patience. For those of you who weren't paying attention in the chat, or couldn't see the chat or whatever, or if you're listening to this later and you're wondering what the heck's going on and I didn't edit this properly, I had a blue screen right in the middle of the stream. So blue screen of death is a Windows thing. Computer just completely crashed. Had to completely reboot, reconnect the internet, load all the software up, get everything back to go, connect route to YouTube, do all that stuff. And yeah, it takes a little bit. So I think that's a sign. Probably kind of just move along. Long story short, for me, I liked Primordial more. I liked it more than Gideon Falls, but I had such a good comic week with all the books we've talked about so far that even as good as this book was, it wasn't as good as the rest for me. What about you? What was your final tally?
I mean, I definitely liked all of the Bad Idea books more than Primordial. With Limbo, yeah. Oh man, that's tough. I think I have Limbo above all of the Bad Idea books except for no, I have it above all of the Bad Idea books. I've really, really been enjoying it. It's been great.
No, I was talking about Primordial.
Oh, Primordial, yeah, no, Primordial. I enjoy it. I'm gonna take it issue by issue. It definitely didn't hit me like, oh yeah, I'm invested for the whole entire, series or whatever. But I am gonna take it issue by issue. Without a doubt, I'm getting issue number 2. Like sold on issue number 2 for sure.
Very cool. Yeah, it goes in a cool place. I really like the sci-fi aspects of it. So that's. I think if you're a Gideon Falls fan, this should be a book you should check out. It could possibly turn out to be horror. I don't know yet. It's definitely not the same as Gideon Falls, but the visuals, it's the same writer, same artist. Yeah, try it out. I am now trying to pull up for our main event. We have a book called Geiger. So that is a book by a little known writer named Geoff Johns. Just, kind of responsible for reshaping the entire DC universe and getting them back on track. And a little lesser known artist named Gary Frank, kind of writing this post-apocalyptic Mad Max type story featuring a superhero in a Mad Max wasteland. And by the end of this book, holy crap, it is not what I thought what was going to be going on. Like, Geoff Johns opens up a big can and says, surprise, there's so much more to this than you thought.
Oh, yeah.
Are you ready to get in on the goodness? Let me bring this up so you can see also in the background. There it is.
And here we go. Yeah, so Geiger, number 6. It starts off with a retelling of some historical, or not necessarily a retelling, but referencing to some historical events on up until 2025, which the Unseen War began, and then ultimately July 4th, 2030, the Unknown War started, and there was that huge explosion that set off all that radiation, and the glowing man was spawned out of there. And it's interesting because there was heroes for every era, that they showed, every war that they referenced. There was some heroes. So Geiger being, the hero of the current war that they are in. From there, we get some flashbacks to the king, where he last left off, looking at the map of where Geiger would be located, and he and his horde set off in that direction. And we ourselves go there, and we get caught back up with Henry, who is the young boy, the little brother to his sister, who, if I remember correctly, her name was Haley.
I think
Yeah.
that's right. Oh, and
Yep.
just to interject real quick, because this whole fiasco that I've had on my side has really cut us on time, and this is a double-sized book. Skip, I would probably, you're probably going to do this anyway, but just give more of a briefness in the overview so we can keep in our time constraints.
Sure. I mean, pretty much in that part, we just get back. We find out that Geiger's supposed to be the hero of this time of this particular war that's going on in Age. We go back over to the location where they were, the Geiger, the Haley, the sister, the young boy, and they need to get the heck out of Dodge, which they were already in the midst of, and now this machine named Joe has been set off against them since Geiger had been, basically wiping out everyone else within there. So they go, rounds and rounds, and ultimately Geiger gets the upper hand. But his rods that hold his his energy back, all the radiation within him, they're broken. So he's trying to, take him, basically get his rod into his body any way he can. He even stabs himself in the gut with it, but it does not work. And right as he's about to go off and, just go nuclear, so to speak, the kids say, hey, you're not going to hurt us. We're your family. And I guess that is enough to calm Geiger's anxiety down to where he does not go nuclear. One of the boys that kind of helped them get out of there is outside, and he is exposed to some of the radiation because he didn't have a suit on like Haley and Henry. So some of the people from the site take him back inside. Geiger and the kids jump into the truck, and Geiger is still kind of, the radiation is still pulsing inside of him, ready to be let out. And right as they're on the road trying to get the heck out of Dodge, the King's men show up. Geiger just gets out of the car and just pretty much disposes them. He goes semi-nuclear on 2 of the cars. The King and such, they scatter and they go off. And Geiger continues to take the kids to another site where that's where he's, pretty much leaving them. And they don't want to part from him. They're like, hey, Barney, Geiger's dog is, part of the family. They're all family and they don't want to split. But he's telling them like, hey, I got to go, for now. You guys stay here. And Geiger's buddy takes him inside. And then Geiger goes back to his home site, back where the story kind of all started, back to the bunker where his family was, only to find out later that they're passed away. And he tips the King off. So the King and his men go and meet Geiger there. And Geiger grabs a picture of his family, starts walking towards the King to handle it. And instead of getting into a fight with the whole gang that the King has there, Geiger goes nuclear. It even says, he found peace, so he was able to just let go. But Barney's in the background and looks on and sees the big explosion that happens where Geiger wipes out all of the king and all of his men. The 2 people that are telling the story of Geiger, it flashes back to them. They let everyone know that back in Las Vegas, some of the other big bads that were there, they're all gathered together, and they have a new guest come in. And on the very last page, we find out that guest that they had come in was one of the people from the compound that Geiger just came from. This person was communing with the vice president, but it seems like this person is going around the back of the vice president and doing deals with the people from the city of Las Vegas. And that's really when we find out that it's the end of Geiger #1, but this whole entire world of Geiger has opened up. And you flip to the next page and literally Junkyard Joe, the robot that Geiger fought, we're going to get a comic about Junkyard Joe and his whole background. So this is not just the world of a single character, everybody. Geoff Johns and Gary Frank let us know that this is an entire universe that they're spawning out of this Geiger title. So that thing just got way bigger.
And what a coincidence, I might say, Skip. And what is the name of this sort of little mini universe? That
the name of this mini universe is actually something that we're probably going to profit off of a little bit, because it's the unnamed universe that we knew for a long time that Geoff Johns and Gary Frank were watching our indie comic show. So we're going to have some words with them.
Yeah, the Unnamed. It gives a new meaning to the Unnamed indie comic show. We totally planned it that way. We are the masters. Skip, thank you. That was a nice, perfectly done introduction and the briefness. Then that was a super challenge to try to do a book of this type and capture so much. But what did you think about this book? Like, what's your like quick, just real quick reaction? Like when you were done, you were like, what was your thoughts? Like,
yeah, I mean, my thoughts was like, oh, okay, okay, so we got a whole thing that we got coming now. All right, I gotta get prepared for that. I definitely want more Geiger because we just got introduced to the character, and I like his power set. I like his his principles and all of that, and it really felt like we were just getting started.
yes.
So that was like my biggest thing, and I like the heartfelt parts. I did have. I was like how he didn't end up exploding. That was a little like, okay, he's just not gonna hurt y'all because y'all just a family now. Okay, Geoff Johns, I get you. You're sentimental. I'm sentimental too. But outside of that, like I enjoyed the fight with Junkyard Joe, and I like that the story is going to go farther, especially with that person that was giving some instruction or some counsel to the vice president, how she went behind his back and now she's communing and meeting with the rest of the big bad villains over in Las Vegas. So there's definitely a lot more meat on the bone. What about you? What was your like initial reaction once you ended it and found out that it spiraled into a bigger world?
So this book really got me, man. I love this is the best issue of Geiger for me, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
And this beginning part didn't really click with me until like towards the end of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And it opens up and says America has always been at war. And in every war there are men and women digging up to fight for their freedom and their family. Some of these heroes are known, but some aren't. They call them the Unnamed. The American Revolution, and it says like American Revolution, and it says the Immortal, and then it goes over to like Civil War, the Historian, and I was like, what's this? I thought they were just having like labels for like types of soldiers of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And they get over to like Vietnam, and it's like the robot, and then they see the ghost, and it goes up to the future, and it's like the glowing man, and I was like, oh, okay. Interesting. Like it didn't really like click with me until towards the end. Like I said, it was like, oh wait, when you see Junkyard Joe, and you're like, oh the robot. Oh, he's literally the robot. Like, and you see here, this dude standing. For those of you we were watching live, you can see he was literally a robot. Like, and I was like, oh, okay. And then you get the reveal like this unnamed universe, and you get the timeline at the end of the book. Now, it was a mixed bag because I was so gripped, and like you, I was like, I like this character, and this story gives so much humanity. God bless you, Geoff Johns. One of the reasons I love Geoff Johns is he understands sort of the birth of a hero, and that's what this 6-issue series is really about to me. My interpretation and the thing that I drew most out of it was there's a character here who just, his heart was closed. He lives through a tragedy. His family's dead. He's got nothing to live for. There's just a wasteland. Like most of the world is devastated by nuclear war. He just wants to just be left in peace with his books. It doesn't care about anyone. He just leave me alone. Like he's just a hermit. And he can't be bothered. And it's these two little kids that get orphaned out in the desert and they're lost their way that like open his heart again and teach him, not teach him, but remind him of his humanity and what it is to care. And that's where we see the hero reemerge, those instincts that he had to save his family. I love this child that in the beginning, well, when you first introduced to him, the little white kid with the glasses, he's kind of a little, what do you say? Like he's like a little sneaky git, like when he's kind of like playing when the smaller boy gets there and he's kind of like being untruthful to them, and you're like, oh, this little kid, he's like a Malfoy type, from Harry Potter, if you get that reference. He's like, seems like that type of character, but in the end, Haley and her brother are so good, he like witnesses them and he kind of does this sort of selfless act and puts himself in radiation without a suit and everything to like help him. And I was like, these are the kinds of things I love seeing in heroic stories, where characters are inspired by the goodness of others. And it's not done overtly. Like, this is all subtle. It's not Geoff Johns preaching to you, but you can just see it. And he's just a side little character that in the beginning you're like, he's just a jealous little kid who's, you know, he's got some sort of malicious intent. And I was like, this is so, it rang so true to me, because I have this personal philosophy that I think we all start off good. Like, children especially are inherently good because they haven't been corrupted yet. Like, everything that's bad in us is due to some sort of corruption that we give into over the years of our lives. But we're not born that way. Like, babies aren't born hating anything, right? They're just like, goo goo, I love everybody, you know? And so this kid, I think all the problems that he's had is because of his environment. But given the opportunity, he clings to his innate, being as an innocent, as children are. And I don't think I'm putting that into words correctly. Hopefully this is coming across, making sense to people. But he sacrifices, potentially he sacrifices his life to help them. And I really like that. And there's a subtle part where they talk about like his glasses, which I think is relevant at the end, which we'll get to. We get a really cool action set piece, you know, with Geiger versus Joe, who obviously is going to become a major character. It isn't just some robot random guy. He's part of the Unnamed. So this is a big deal. We're not even, it's not even clear like how big of a showdown this is, because it's, it's like the Justice League, like Batman versus Superman before you know who Batman and Superman are. And I like that we get that action piece. I love that the kids, their love for him help break through, like for him to control his powers, because he doesn't have his control rods anymore and he's going to go nuclear, and somehow their love for him allows him to reach new levels within himself. And I think that's just a trope that is so well executed. Like, Johns doesn't break new ground here for me. I don't think he's like reinventing the wheel, but he's doing what he did over at DC Comics and just going, I'm going to show you how to execute it perfectly. Like, this is just how you do hero comics. And it's like watching just a master craftsman on his trade. God, I hated this little kid at first with the glasses. Mm-hmm. And at the end, I'm just like, gosh darn, you won me over. Like, I just think, just seeing the goodness in people, man. And look, if you guys have listened to me on my own outside of this show, you know how salty and cynical I can be. I am one of those people. But that doesn't mean I like cynicism. It doesn't mean I like it. I actually very much am attracted to the positivity of others. Maybe that's why I like you so much, Skip. I like seeing, and it makes me go, I should be better. Yeah. And we get this really cool fight. There's so many little subtleties here. This whole showdown at the end with the nuclear knight kind of reminds me of the big fight in that movie Troy, which is kind of a lackluster movie as a whole, but it had a really cool fight between Achilles and the other guy I'm forgetting now. Eric Bana's character, Hector. Yeah, Hector and Achilles. Actually, this is before that. Before the fight, when Achilles fights the first guy, and he's like the big menacing beast, and you're like, oh, geez, it's gonna be a fight, and like, it's not even an effort for Achilles. He's just like, stab you in the neck, you're done. This kind of reminded me of that sort of thing where it's just like, oh, it's gonna be a showdown, and it's like, nope, you mess with the wrong guy. I was really kind of saddened at the end to see him leave the kids, but it made sense. I was like, okay, he can't necessarily be carting these kids around forever. He did leave his dog behind, which made me sad. Like, come on, that's Barney. But maybe they'll be reunited. I just loved it. He finally came full circle. I loved this scene here when he shows up back, when he leaves them all behind and he shows up back to the king. And he's got the picture of his family and the symbolism you see here in the one frame where he's just melting it. And, he's like, there's nothing here you can hurt, not anymore. And the picture just burns up in his hand. And it's so symbolic of not him, like, it's not him letting go of his family, like, but like letting go of the grief, like not sitting there and dwelling on it and keeping him from moving forward. And he's realized that's what he needs to do. They're past, and he can still hold them in their heart, but he's doing nothing by just sitting there and brooding. And I just love the way that played off. And he just is Geoff Johns writes as like Geiger opened his heart and he found peace. And by doing that, he goes full nuclear, detonates it off. And then the story comes full circle, right from the issue number 1, where you saw the two guys just sitting around the crater, and you opened up, if you were like me, when you read issue number 1, you're like, what the heck's even going on here? Why are these guys just sitting on a crater? Like, and am I wrong? This guy with the eye patch, that's the little boy, isn't it?
I think it has to be, because it was that same eye.
Yeah, same eye. And how would he know about the crater? Like, how would he know about all this story? And he has a little line there, and I like the subtleties. I like how Johns doesn't just like hammer it down. Like, there's a little subtlety in the line. He's like, the kids found help. The girl, she was something special to me once. And that little line like there, it's like, oh, he liked Haley, and he doesn't know necessarily what happened to them because we saw them move on. Now, this guy, at first, I was thinking might be the younger brother, but I'm not sure. I'm kind of doing the stereotypical white guy thing, like, oh, he's a black guy, but I don't know who he is.
I thought he was too, but he would have known more of the story because he was there. So that's why I'm thinking that he might not be.
Although, would he? Because remember, he was carted off to Mexico with the girl in red.
Are you talking about Henry, the brother?
Yeah.
Like that guy is telling the story. So like the parts, so he wouldn't have been like a candidate to tell, so to speak.
Okay. Well, just one of those little theory things you're just trying to piece together. I'm hopefully they'll have more revelations. Yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. Like, I want to continue to go to find out, because I'm just as interested in who they are as I am with like Junkyard Joe and all that stuff. I'm really curious about the whole entire thing at this point.
So then I got to this page after I was concluded. You turned right to this page, and I was like, oh, on behalf of Gary and myself, the whole Mad Ghost team, blah blah. Thank you. It's a typical, like afterward thank you letter, but that's where Geoff exposes. Oh yeah, by the way, all those characters we introduced you in the beginning, the Immortal, the Robot, etc., we're basically making comics for all of them, and this was just the first one. And I'm like, that bastard, he's kind of making his own Justice League. Like, he's just he's doing what the DCEU refused to do, in like just building it up slowly, and I'm like, we're gonna get, because the whole thing about the Unnamed. The Unnamed is not just them, the soldiers, it's also the war. Because we get to this timeline, in 2030, the unknown war starts. And I have a feeling that all of these guys, starting with the red coat, who's the Immortal, and if he's the Immortal, he's probably still alive, right? They're all going to end up crossing paths, and they're all going to form up, and there's going to be this unknown war of the future that they have to fight. And it says here at the end, from a radioactive family man in the near future to a British assassin during the American Revolution to a robotic killing machine seeking its creator and more. They are the Unnamed fighting the unknown war. And you're like, oh, dude, thank you, Geoff, for book. I'm gonna read it. That's all I did. I just was going on the creator team alone. And I was like, this got to be bigger than just some guy running around in a wasteland. Geoff Johns just doesn't do. When was the last time Geoff Johns wrote like a little story like that? I mean, I'm sure he has, but the Geoff Johns I'm familiar with is the guy who's like, Rebirth. I'm orchestrating this huge, doomsday clock. Like bigger ideas, and just overall, So basically, I guess what I'm beating around the bush, and I'm getting lost in the weeds as usual for me. I was a mixed bag because I was like, oh wait, we're not getting Geiger 7. We're going to Junkyard Joe. So part of me is like, yes, I want to see the thing, but I also just want more Geiger. So I don't know. Like, it's a double-edged sword. Like, I guess I'll just have to be patient and let it all come. But I'm excited for the theme. I hope that each one of these characters gets a similar type of treatment, and we get to see that development of, like, here's what they were, here's the journey that they had to go on to be the thing that is, the character, what they're supposed to be. I love that hero's journey. I'm a sucker for it. And when you can execute it on a super high level, which Geoff Johns is, he has very few peers in the comics world that can play on his level, in my opinion.
I agree. Yeah, man. I mean, you said it better than I could. Especially, like, that's the thing that I enjoy about Johns the most. I appreciate his strong sense of the hero's journey and everything that he does within there. And even some people may feel like he's one note, but he plays that damn note so well. He is the Miles Davis. He is the Jimi Hendrix of or even if you just want to call him the Stevie Ray Vaughan. Maybe he didn't maybe he wasn't so innovative, but he came and built so well upon something that was so strongly established for so many years. So yeah, he does that so well. I mean, and I think that, and that's kind of where I am a little bit with comics. There's more types of stories than the hero's journey, and I've been, especially through indie comics, I've been really enjoying different ways of storytelling, different approaches to it, and telling different types of story. But when I want a hero's journey, and unfortunately, and I don't want to limit some of the people over at Marvel and DC to only telling the hero's journey, either. But the fact of the matter is that when you're using, core characters that have been established, and they are supposed, and for the ones that are heroic characters, it's going to feel a little off if you're not circling somewhere around, the monomyth, the hero's journey.
Right.
And so when I want a dose of that, when I want to feel that encouragement that, that I can be better than this, I can rise above, there are few that are better in show than Geoff.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. Because, yeah, like, all those books we talked about tonight, none of them are hero's journey, and they're all fabulous. Like, they're fantastic stories. I think the key is that if you're going to tell a hero story, do it well. And that's,
do it well.
Like, Geoff Johns didn't have to tell that. He could have done something like any of the other books we talked. Those books didn't have to be it. That's fine. But if you're gonna do it, what I hate seeing is like a story about heroes and stuff, and there is no journey. There's nothing to care about. They don't have to rise. They just, oh look, everything's handed to them, and it's just like, what are you doing? that's Geoff Johns is like a master chef. He's not creating a new dish that you've never tasted before. He's just making the kind of meal that you want to eat taste better than any other person has cooked it before in your life. Like that's kind of what he's doing. And there's a place for both. Sometimes you want that innovation. Sometimes you want, I've never seen this before. This is so far out and weird. Like, I love this. And sometimes you just want like comfort food, right? You just,
yep.
I want that good cheese. I want the best cheeseburger I've ever had. I don't need to reinvent it, just, and that's what this book, I was so happy, but yet it's still like that mixed bag. I'm like, oh, it's a mixed blessing. And I'm sure it's all going to work out in the end. And I'm sure, I hope, hopefully you're as on board as I am to keep doing with the Joe and the other books. I mean, we have to now. It's the Unnamed.
Right.
But you guys, if you're in the audience and you're listening to this, or you're listening to this later on a recast or the podcast or whatever, just if you're getting to, and you have not read these books, and you like hero books, give this a try. It is a slow start. Geoff Johns, that's what he does. If you read Doomsday Clock, it didn't just fire off immediately. It's a slow burn to get to his point. But I'm telling you, that payoff for me is worth it. I'll take a slow build if you can stick that landing. I think there's too many. I think the sign of a weak writer sometimes is to have to just win you over immediately and throw all their chips in right away, and then they don't have anything else to play with. And if you're the kind of person that's like, look, I don't necessarily need the most original story. You can give me something I've seen before, but just do it in a fresh way that is just well executed. You're gonna get. I mean, Gary Frank is one of the top artists in the business. You can't read through this book. I'm not even a Gary Frank fan, right? But I can't help but just be like, yeah, this is top tier art. You know, like I don't at every aspect. And in this book too, by the way, we talked earlier in the show about how these Bad Idea books are just absolutely pristine, gorgeous publications that have. This is the closest that comes. When I bought this book in the store before I'd ever seen a Bad Idea book, I was like marveling. I was like, this is amazing. It was only because the Bad Ideas were unbelievable. But this is you hold this book in your hands, and bravo to you again, Geoff Johns. This is like a double-sized issue. It's nice and thick and heavy in your hands with cardboard stock cover, and it's like $4.99. It's
yep.
I cannot praise this enough. Please don't sit here and just listen to us spoil this. Jump on the bandwagon. Get these books now that you know it's a bigger thing to follow. Hopefully that encourages you to be like, oh, it's more than just a little mini series. It's going to be a bigger deal, and maybe that gets you to want to jump on board. There's going to be an annual book, like an 80-page annual book coming out. Yeah, here's the cover. I think it's in December, and it's going to feature some other artists like Brian Hitch, Jay Faber, Peter Tomasi on some writing. So there's going to be some other stories in the Geiger story. So I'm going to be, of course, on that, and hopefully Skip is as well. 80-page giant. And then looking forward to whenever Junkyard Joe comes out, and hopefully it's as good or even better than Geiger. That'd be amazing if it's better somehow.
I mean, it's John's, man. Like, it could be. We'll see.
He just puts heart in his books, man. I love books with heart. Man. All right, folks. Skip, I know I monopolized the mic. I'm a chatterbox. Do you have any final thoughts? Any things that you haven't said yet that you wanted to get out in the air before we wrap this with a bun and call it a night?
I think we pretty much wrapped it up in here. I would just say, if you can get your hands on some Bad Idea comics, it's worth it. If you don't have anyone near you selling them, feel free to DM me on Twitter or find me in Ash's Discord and send me a DM. It's not as difficult to get them as some may think. When there's a will, there's a way. Other than that, thanks everybody for hanging tight with us through the technical difficulties, and hope you guys enjoyed the show and found some new books that you might be interested in.
Oh yeah, thank you guys. Like Skip said, for putting up with that. I really apologize. It's embarrassing. I don't like you guys having to wait. I don't like it. It feels unprofessional. So I appreciate you sticking through, and hopefully that doesn't happen again. And hopefully you'll join us again in a week or two for our next show. I got to talk to Skip behind the scenes about some of the deets, but we got some more firepower coming up, and hopefully DECORUM will eventually wrap up. We've been waiting on that one for a million years. And yeah, just it's a good time. Look, there's obviously some problems in comics for a lot of people, but there's really great stuff out there And I've been around comics for over 35 years, and I've seen some of the best, read some of the best comics, probably arguably the best. I'm always hunting when people say this is one of the best. Some of the stuff I'm reading today, granted it's a small slice of the pie, but some of the stuff I'm reading today can hold its, stand up with the greats. So don't let it discourage you that there's a lot of stuff that's not meeting your expectations. Instead, look for the good stuff that surpasses your expectations.
Agreed.
Take care, everyone, and have a great night.